Hey guys, I'm Mariana.
Hi, Mariana.
So when we start off, Burton's storyline is a bit separate than the brother storyline, and kind of a completely different tone of the story. He's a bit wacky, and the brothers is a bit more serious, a bit stressful. But then it kind of weaves in, and it's different than expected because he doesn't take Roman's advice. Why did you guys try to have it separate in the beginning and then weave it in later?
We felt that the creation of a show that leaned entirely into the brother's story and Roman Compte's dilemma would tread down very familiar paths that I had explored before in Narcos and that other shows had explored. And so we felt we wanted the real life character. In real life, his name was Burton Goldberg, but we call him Burton Greenberg, after one of my agents. We knew that he represented the sort of frivolity of the me decade, the navel-gazing, this desire for self-improvement. And so that automatically lent itself to some form of comedy, which the studio was correctly nervous about. They were like, can you blend these two tones successfully in the show? I felt we could, and I also felt that that would make the show a unicorn. It would just be a little bit different than what you've seen before. Of course, and I would say to Michael Wright, who's the most greatest executive in Hollywood, in my opinion, and he said, can you combine these tones? Do you think you can do it? I said, oh, don't worry, Michael. We're going to bring him closer and closer into it. And so circumstances, of course, I'm not sure how many episodes you've seen.
But all four that were available to me.
Great. Yeah. So as you're starting to see the financial entanglements Burton has with the hotel and the loan on it drive him into the world of drug dealing in a way that I think would be very entertaining. I mean, the simple question me and my writers ask ourselves is it entertaining? Because if it isn't, then don't write it. Because nobody wants a history lesson. Nobody wants a documentary. I mean, I love documentaries, but this is a story, a fictional story that has many elements of truth, including the fact that Maurice's father, Roman, existed and was the inspiration for the show.
I did not know that. Not twist. Because I was like, oh.
You're like, what's he doing?
Hello. I was like, oh, they have the same last name. What a cute week from the EP.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So a different set of questions. So when you had heard this story from your family, how did you know, like, okay, this would actually be a great television show?
Well, no, I lived the story.
Yeah.
I hung out at the Mutiny as a kid. So, and I was around my dad during his meeting a lot of what you might get to know to be some of the characters that may appear further down the road. A lot of musicians, a lot of famous people. We spent a lot of time talking about the dark aspect, and it's very relevant because it's the circumstances that were happening in Miami at the time. But we also had an incredible amount of artistry come through there. And those two things kind of mixing is like hot and cold water mixing together. Things that come out of it is like a pool for different things to come. Some great, some bad. But the Mutiny was always like a meeting place for amazing things to happen. And however you wanted to look at it, it's just a place for opportunity.
And when Maurice told me about the Mutiny and his father being the general manager, I immediately thought of the movie Casablanca and his dad's Humphrey Bogart. The backdrop of Casablanca is World War II and all the different forces that are allied at the club, bouncing against each other at the club. And this now was his father in a place where the bouncing figures were drug dealers and DEA agents, Colombians versus Cubans, etc., etc. Again, a small fraction of the Colombian and Cuban population are drug dealers. So I don't need to make too much of that. But the backdrop was a war on drugs that was happening. And really the show operates on a simple premise, which is the frivolity and fun that cocaine was inside the club as a trail of dead bodies leading all the way back to South America. And the people in the club don't recognize that. They do it thoughtlessly. So I hope the show illustrates the fact that when you decide to use illegal substances that you're aware. There's some people who died on the way to get this to me.
And what's also interesting is that the dead bodies don't just go back to Colombia. Politically, they go back to Cuba. Politically, they go back to Washington. We had so many different things that were meeting at that place. There were so many agendas at play during that time. And these are all coming out right now.
Yes, there are a lot of TV shows about drug trafficking and drugs. You've been in several of them. You've created some of them. How, and I think you both have done this well in acting in them and creating one. How have you made sure that the show is about that, but they aren't stereotypical and detrimental to Black and Latino people, and that there are complex stories?
Well, first of all, we like to show both in Hotel Cocaine, also Godfather of Harlem, and even in Narcos, the utter illegality, corruption of what I would call the white power structure, so that there's nobody, human foibles are the same. There's greed, there's willingness to kill for advancement, and luckily most of us don't follow that path, but it exists in any racial group. So I think we pay attention to that, and we also, the way to make these shows not just rip-offs of a previous show is, this show is the collision of a drug war going on with the me decade. So that element of humor turns the show on its ear just a little bit. Godfather of Harlem, which I also co-created, is the collision of organized crime and the civil rights struggle in the 60s. And Narcos, of course, was and we shot it a little bit documentary style to give you the sense. And the thing about Narcos that made, I think, it made it a bit of a twist or a unicorn, is we shot it all in Colombia. So very few American-based television shows shot in foreign countries. It was kind of a big no-no. And then I also went to Netflix and I said, here's what I don't want to see. I don't want to see Pablo Escobar speaking in English. That immediately signals BS to the audience. He didn't speak a word of English. So I would like all the narcos to speak in Spanish, and we'll subtitle it, and that'll give you, if you don't speak Spanish, you'll be getting a secret window into their world. You'll be reading what they're saying, but you won't understand what they're saying. And if you do speak Spanish, one of two things will happen. You'll respect us for being true to the actual nationality of the characters, and you'll make fun of Wagner Moore's accent.
By the way, you couldn't
all
killed it. Well, I thought
his acting was so good that
he was great.
overcame it.
But the other amazing thing about what Chris is saying is that being a minority, we all have our own cultures, and if you speak another language, you understand that when you're speaking a different language, you think differently.
Yeah.
When you're speaking in Spanish, my thoughts are completely different than when I'm speaking in English. And so it's important because through giving people that window, through the subtitles, they're actually able to show the way that they think in a more concise way than when they're trying to transfer that into an English way of thinking. So it's almost like when
Ariana, I hope you never hear us talk in Spanish.
Yeah, that's terrible. I still think in English.
Not cool at all. But another thing that's important to note is that on these shows, I'm the head of a writing team and I produce the show, but the writers on that show must have a connection to the nationality or the race, creed, or color being represented. I can't know what it's like to be a Cuban in Miami at the time, or even a Cuban today. I can't know what it's like to be a black person in the 60s or even today. And I've been amazed at the angles that those writers on my staff can present. But I just simply, my world experience doesn't allow me to access that. I believe writers should be able to write about anything they want, regardless of race, creed, or color. But you also have to be smart enough to know I don't know the whole story unless I'm in those shoes. So I need to have people associated.
Story is definitely how you're telling about what the main focus is of the other shows, that it's not just drugs. This is, from even Burton's point of view and from the brothers, can you really work with family when there's always going to be a number one and a number two? Do you think it is possible, and even from your own experience of living it, for Roman and Nestor to work together when there is a number one and number two?
I think we have to hire you as a writer for seasons 2 and 3. You seem to have,
because that's exactly what that's.
Seem to have a little bit of forward thinking. Yes, that's going to be a struggle. because you see that Roman is one who has this military prowess that gets suggested in episode 1, but then gets actuated in future episodes. So, those brothers will work together as long as we can keep. There's this thing in writing, like don't let them kiss, let them almost kiss.
Yes.
Keep that going. So we're gonna try to keep the tension alive and the partnership alive as long as we can. But I have no doubt there'll be some serious conflict between them.
Yeah. What's up with Janice? I say this because Burton and Roman is so willing to tell all of their secrets to her, and she's also willing to go above and up beyond to Roman. Is it a romantic thing? Is it how Danny was saying that they've seen each other at their lowest points and they don't want to be there before? There seems to be not a will they or won't they, but what won't they do for each other? What's kind of their relationship?
Well, that's a very good question as well. I think Roman and Janice have that special relationship that comes out of him having rescued her from a bad situation, and so she feels an obligation to rescue him from bad situations. Burton is her boss, who also rescued her from a bad situation by giving her a job that she loves. She is someone who is a truth teller. She's supremely efficient, and also has, a little bit of moral ambiguity because she's willing to do things on their behalf that could be questionable or could even put her in danger. So I think we have lots of room as the series develops to explore her and her relationship with these men. And you're actually giving me some ideas.
There you are. He's going to pull out his pen.
Yeah, the Rick James storyline. I loved it. It was a way to tie everyone together in the beginning, and there's a sense of humor about it. What was, from a writing perspective and a storyline perspective, what was the point of, and how did that push the story forward?
Well, at first we started to think every episode there'll be some special guest of the week at the Mutiny, and then we realized we didn't want to hamstring ourselves. The Maharishi appears in episode 3, but very briefly. So we saw a value to having some characters who were real life people who certainly were at the Mutiny, like Rick James. The great actor Larry Powell plays Rick, and so again, it's to sort of leaven the violence that's occurring in the other side of the story. And then also, we just thought it was pretty funny that Rick James, comes to the hotel super depressed, and even cocaine can't lift the spirits. And ultimately, it's the inspiration in a church, which is actually true. Rick James had a church upbringing that inspires Superfruit.
You get a little historical kind of just byproduct of his bringing, which he sang in the choir, right?
So crazy. What 70s celebrity would you have loved to party at the Mutiny Club with?
Farrah Fawcett Majors.
Ooh.
We had a nice storyline actually where but it was too. We realized it was veering too much into comedy and it could be a parody, so we decided to drop it. But yeah, I guess Farrah Fawcett.
I would have liked to have had tea.
Joe Namath. Who?
Had tea with Robert Plant.
Yeah.
Because that Zeppelin was there.
Jimmy
and
Page
like,
was there.
there was,
Well,
There are many.
yes.
Many.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. Congrats on the premiere. I'm so
Thank
excited.
you.
So, are you looking to do more seasons? Because it keeps saying
You're
like
always
episode
looking to do more
series.
seasons.
I didn't know if it was a mini series. Okay.
5.
6 seasons in the movie is what I always say.
Yeah. Okay. Good. 6 seasons in a movie.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You guys
Thank
have
you.
a great one.